Hello, everyone. I'm back again. We hope you all enjoyed the film and are excited to continue the conversation with New York Times journalist and ScreenTimes moderator Logan Hill, the two lead actors Aubrey Plaza and Elizabeth Olsen, and the film's writer and director Matt Spicer. Please join me in giving them all a very warm welcome.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for coming out tonight. This is only our second ScreenTimes, so we're all very #blessed to have you here. It's our second time, so we're also really thrilled to have a film that I saw at Sundance and loved and been wanting to talk about since. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you for having us.
And thanks to our folks watching on Facebook Live as well. We've got folks out there, and we'll be taking your questions whenever they're handed to me, basically. You'll see somebody show up with note cards, so that's what he's doing. If he's not a stalker. How many people have your cell phones out? Like, yeah, exactly.
Please Instagram this right now.
I want to ask you, so what is the relationship? How much do you want people to Instagram this? How much are you using this kind of itchy conceit as a way to sell the movie?
I'm on there every day, just plugging away,
Just hustling.
trying to retweet, and just really trying to get out there, you know, get that awareness to build.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get that marketing money, that brand money, you know. How do you guys can maybe teach me some things about how to, you know.
Not me.
No?
Yeah, do it.
No?
Terrible at it.
Does anyone know how to get money from Instagram?
I paid $50 because of Aubrey's link on her Instagram.
What?
All right.
talking
There-
What does that mean?
So basically the New York Times is the only one benefiting financially here.
There we go. That's why the media is doing so well right now. Yeah. When you were working on the script, did you get lost in like online wormholes as you were doing your research for this script? This is your first film you've directed, and it turned out great. But like, how do you get a script written when there's so much great stuff to check out on the internet?
Well, thank you. I actually had a co-writer, Dave Smith, who's backstage, but thanks, Dave. But we definitely went down some major wormholes. I mean, it's one of those things where I think where you're on Instagram, you're on social media, and then just time flies by, and then you look down at your watch, and it's been an hour, and you're like, how did I just waste an hour of my life doing this, you know? But I don't know, that's it. I enjoy it, but I also hate myself for enjoying it at the same time. So I have very conflicting feelings about it.
As you were looking for inspiration for your characters, were you both kind of looking for people who were like the characters you're playing?
I was.
Yeah.
Because I signed on to the film like a month, I guess, before we started filming, and Spicer was like, here's your login, here's your username, you're following these 22 people, and take photos. And I'm a terrible photographer, and posted like a photo of a sign in front of a house that said beautiful inside. It was really bad. We didn't use a single photo in the movie.
You've gotten a lot better since your training, though.
Thank you. I basically repost things that other people have taken photos of. Yeah, I followed all these different kinds of influencers, people that have made businesses and like started fashion lines, or people that just look like a really lovely couple with great taste. And I started to understand that this is some like really bizarre world where people have, I don't know if they have like the most beautiful cameras in the world or if they have really special apps, but they all look the same. They all were really bright, and they just made their life look like so beautiful. And so I can understand why if someone has a form of some sort of, I don't know.
I'll take it from here. I didn't follow anyone that was like my character,
Right.
but
They're following.
I'm not really putting that out there in the world.
mine not so much. But I did follow.
They're all here tonight.
Yeah. Hello. I did follow, people that I felt like Ingrid would be obsessed with, and I did allow myself to kind of indulge in the feeds of those types of people and beautiful limbs, bodies, lifestyles, that kind of thing.
What did you like the most about it? What seemed most seductive?
Nothing. I didn't like it at all.
No amount of avocado toast.
No,
Yeah.
that's not for me. I think there's some, what? I think there's some, it's fun. The comedy part of Instagram I really love. I love following really funny people. But in general, it makes me feel like my life sucks and everyone else is like having a really great time.
Yeah.
And why am I not?
Yeah. Me too. In terms of the specific references, how did you did you feel like you had to keep rewriting this script or reworking it as it was being developed? Because some of it feels very timely, but I don't know if everybody's just been into avocado toast for that long.
We definitely kept, the script was very fluid throughout. We kept updating it as we would find better jokes or better references or a more perfect kind of thing that encapsulated what, things that we would see. You start to ingest a lot of it and you can start to see the code in the matrix a little bit, and you see where the overlap is, where there's that kind of universal, like the hashtag blessed or the avocado toast, or certain things that you just see like, 10, 15, 20, 100 times, and you're like, okay, there's some thread here. And so we tried to pull on things like that we'd seen throughout. But we also wanted it to be specific too. We tried to use like a lot of the captions and stuff were things that we would cherry pick from, a lot of those things that we were following, just kind of indiscriminately, but just things that would either make us laugh or whatever. But because the specificity of it, I think, is what made it funny to us. And I think a lot of stuff that tries to parody social media tends to go like broader with it. And I think for us, the specificity of it made it funnier. I guess that's.
And also, I feel like sometimes films like this, when a character spirals out of control, the whole film kind of seems to at a certain point, and becomes sort of less human. But the two of you did such an interesting job at making you care about both of these characters and realizing that both of them had problems, that it wasn't just a crazy stalker movie, something like that. Can you talk a little bit about what appealed to you about the script? Because I think you were attached first, right?
Yes. What? I said yes. I'm trying to answer.
I did just ask the most generic question. And
no, it doesn't matter. Whatever I say is fucked. I love the script, and I was just so. I was just so excited by the story, and just to me, the script felt very old school. It felt like a movie, like the movies that I had grown up watching and loving and made me want to be in movies. And a script that's written from one character's perspective was really appealing to me. I loved the human journey that Ingrid goes on, and I just thought it was so timely and such a relevant piece of art that I really responded to it.
When you talk about films that reminded you of, we were talking about this backstage a bit. This idea of being obsessed with someone else and thinking about wanting to change yourself because they represent something you want to get closer to. There have been other films that kind of deal with that tension that predated social media. Or were you thinking of some of those movies about other similar obsessions?
Yeah. When Aubrey and I first met, we talked about Chuck and Buck, which I don't know if you guys have seen Chuck and Buck, but that's a great movie about obsession.
Mike White wrote it. Miguel Arteta directed it. Mike White stars in it. It's a really great movie.
And we talked about Talented Mr. Ripley. We talked about King of Comedy. It was funny. That was one of the things that I think made me realize that Aubrey would be perfect for this part, beyond just what I had already known about her, was that I felt like we had the same taste. And I think we were instantly talking about the same reference points. And it's just like, as a director, when you're working with actors, I just think it's so great to have that shorthand. And just like, I felt the same way with Lizzie too. It's just like, you don't have to explain things. They just get it right off the bat. And it just makes your job 100 times easier when everything's going wrong on set or you're running out of time, and you don't have to sit there for 20 minutes and explain something to them. They just inherently understand it. And I felt that with both of them, which was why I cast them.
Yeah. Do you think that the same dynamics are at play that were in play in those movies, that social media just kind of puts gasoline on the fire?
I do. I mean, I think for me, the movie was never like the Instagram movie, and I was always so conscious of trying to veer away from making a movie that is solely as, commentary or a social, like a clever kind of wink to the audience. Like, that's not what makes me love movies. I love movies because I love the characters and I connect with the human story and the emotion. And so the idea that someone wants someone to like them so much and is so lonely, really, I related to that. And I felt that the part that Instagram played was more of like, well, how does this affect a character like that, and how crazy can it get when they're now dealing with a device like their phone that can let them kind of indulge in their worst toxic impulses.
Yeah. So, I mean, like being in the media, I think, and having written lots of profiles of people who, get the way your character discovers Taylor, right, is not really through Instagram. You discover her through a magazine. It's opening it up, seeing that spread and saying, oh, she's going to be your best, this is America's new best friend, or however it's phrased.
Right, but then you have all the information at your fingertips like we do, and that can get pretty dark.
Yeah. How does it feel to be doing that kind of magazine story, that kind of interview, that kind of photo spread, while starring in this movie? For both of you.
I don't know. It is. There's a lot of pressure in like a very fortunate way of having to constantly be articulate and having to constantly look cool so that people can take pictures and judge you. And so that is strange, especially when you're telling a story about literally just that, just like the outside perspective, when really we're telling a story on the interior level of people just want to be seen. And once we had social media and people can click on things and like it, and then people get a buzz and they like it and their endorphins are running and their serotonin's going wild. And now people become addicted to they saw me, they noticed me. I just got some sort of validation from that. And I think from sometimes I think our perspective, it kind of feels like you just want to turn it off. And you do, I think. But when you do press, you have to embrace it, and you want people to see the movie, and you just put yourself out there, and you're like, go see my movie. I'll do whatever you want me to do, whatever the song and dance is.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in editors' meetings at magazines where you hear it's talking about hires, and they'll hire the writer who has more followers on Twitter, and that'll be a reason to assign a piece. And I read a story today with an actress saying, she knew she'd been told that she got a role that a better actress didn't get because they really wanted her social following to be a part of that film.
She didn't care. She was still happy.
She was kind of bragging about it a little bit.
Yeah, I bet she was.
Yeah.
Or else you wouldn't say it.
Yeah, right? Not a good look.
Keep that secret.
Does it, knowing that maintaining that is a part of the job, right? If you want to get good work, you want to get great roles and stuff, it's part of the mix, right?
I still, since I started at
Who
zero,
decides this?
I
It's
haven't
not
gotten
fair.
a job.
No, I don't like it. That's not fair.
No one's given me a job because I put up photos of myself eating food and horribly.
Yeah, but they will.
embarrassing ways.
You're gonna get some Chanel, campaign.
I hope they're watching.
Oh, they are. You're going.
I wouldn't say
places.
no.
No, you're going.
What
Going
I like
places,
about
Aubrey. We're going together,
All right. I'll just be
hand in
hanging on
hand.
to
We're
your
just gonna be like
ratty
Siamese
skirt,
twins.
just dragging
for
in the
Chanel.
dirt. Just all right. Whatever you do, I'll do.
I like that Lizzie's Instagram, you post stuff, you posted something the other day of a paparazzi photo of you chowing down at a local cafe or something.
I decided to start a series called Feed Me Fridays.
I think it's really funny. I love it. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, but I think that's cool. If I didn't know you, I would be I think that's cool that you're just, you're kind of deconstructing that celebrity thing of we all have to be
Well, it feels terrible without an excuse posting a pretty photo on the internet and be like, look at me, I look great. And then you can't, if you don't say something funny, it feels so strange.
It's a complicated world we live in. I mean, let's be honest.
You guys, this is
It's a
so
lose-lose
complicated.
for
Social
everyone.
media
I'm
is the bane
serious.
of all of
For
our
you, it's lose.
existence.
For me,
lose.
we all
Thank God we made this movie that's gonna solve it.
Yeah, everyone's gonna just
Always
try
will
and
think
kill
about it.
themselves
I don't
and
know.
get more followers.
You feel like you're losing every day
I feel
because
like
of the
I'm losing
internet?
pretty much every day.
I am.
Yeah.
The
I keep
internet is
installing all the
terrible.
apps, like the blocking apps.
Every app sucks.
Yeah,
I think we're getting.
We don't need them. We never did.
never did. So have you deleted them all now?
No, I use them all. Yeah. And I'm not good at it, and I want to be.
But I think that's how everyone feels, right? I feel like, do you get this? Is that the response that you get when you screen this movie for people, that everybody feels like they're not using it right?
We're animals.
I don't think there's like a necessarily a right or wrong way to use it, but I think that what we were trying to get at with the film is this idea of like authenticity and like not trying to be something that you're not necessarily. And I think I'm just trying to be true to yourself and using it that way, which I think is what it was intended for when people created it. Was, oh, this is a way for us all to connect with each other. And I think, but there's no point to that if we're all just these weird avatars of ourselves that are just connecting with each other. You know, that's not real connection.
Yeah. Is there something healthy about trying on different roles or different personas too? I mean, O'Shea Jackson's character wears the mask to get over his trauma in school to feel more comfortable. I think people try out identities all the time in ways that are sometimes not just inauthentic, right? That are about going through a phase and trying to figure out more about yourself. Is it tricky to figure out where to draw the line?
Well, it's interesting because he's like very aware of what he was doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
I think is different. You know what I mean? I think there's like that self-awareness that I think of, this is why I was doing that. It was easier for me to cope with that. And I think, the Ingrid character at the end becomes a lot more self-aware. And I think, there's this kind of awakening for her too about what that all means. So I think I think you're right. I think that's interesting of like, who am I? Like, what does that mean? But I think if there's like a thought behind it, there's a process behind it, and you're saying like, okay, I'm making an intentional choice to do this, is different than just sort of looking at someone else and being like, they're successful, I'll just copy them. That's not necessarily being true to yourself or having any real intention.
Right. And how did O'Shea get cast? I hear you were involved with the casting.
I was. Him and I, it's a really long story.
We got time.
Okay, here we go. Okay, here's the medium version. He was a presenter at an award show with me. I had like a very brief moment of eye contact with him. I had just read the script, so it was fresh in my mind. And then on Twitter that night, he tweeted me like a joke, something that was like, yo, at Evil Hag throwing me shade backstage or something. And I didn't understand what that meant, and I didn't understand what he was talking about. But then I thought like, oh, he's like, cosmically like sending me a message. And I was thinking about the script a lot, and I thought, well, maybe he would be a great Dan Pinto. And so you all know that Dan Pinto was obsessed with Batman, which is important for this story, because I basically DM'd him on Twitter and I said, hey, I just read a script. It's really interesting and maybe you would want to be in it, and if you want to hear more about it, here's my cell phone and my email address, and like maybe you'd like to be in it. I don't know. It was just an idea I had, and I wasn't really expecting anything. And then I kind of let that go, and then a couple days later I got a text message from an unknown number that said, yo, what's up? It's Batman. And I read the text and immediately was like, well, it must be O'Shea, and he must want to do the movie. Yeah. He must have loved it, and he wants to do it. So I texted Spicer, and I said, I think he's in. I'm going to have a meeting with him and find out. And so we set a date to have a meeting, and we met at a bar at a reasonable hour. And things progressed. And I tried to play it cool at first, and I didn't mention the movie because I thought, this is a Hollywood business meeting. Let's not rush into anything. And And then somewhere along the line, I finally was like, all right, I'm going to say it. And I said, so do you want to do the movie? And he was like, what movie? And I was like, the Batman movie. And he was like, that I emailed you. And he was like, you don't have my email? And then I looked in my phone to find the email where I'd sent him the script, because of course I thought that he had read it, and I couldn't find the email. And then I realized that I didn't have his email. I'd never sent him the script. He had no idea why I had asked him to meet me at a bar, and he had other ideas about what was going to happen. And at that point, I was like, listen, why did you say you were Batman? Because if you didn't read the script, then how would you know? And he said, I am Batman. That's just who I am, for real. And I was like, this is not up to us. This is some otherworldly stuff. And he couldn't believe that I thought I was in a Hollywood meeting. And I was like, we're making deals. And he was like, you're crazy. I thought we were on a date, and I was like, I don't know what's happening. So then basically I was, once we realized, oh, he had never read the script, but in real life he thinks he's Batman, I was like, you are the character, and now I'm not doing the movie if you don't do it. So you have to do it, or I will bail. So it became, and then I told Spicer, and then eventually he actually read the script, and then we just aggressively were like, you're doing it, you have to do it. You are Dan Pinto. And then he did it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Bullied him into doing the movie, yeah, pretty much.
It was fated.
And weirdly, he was just another weird thing about the character. He was studying screenwriting at USC when he got cast in Straight Outta Compton, so he's also a screenwriter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was he interested in the Batman universe and expanding it with other stories?
Oh,
He's
yeah.
interested in everything Batman.
Yeah.
It's like he told me to get into his Batmobile. So.
Does that usually work for him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yes.
I guess it's usually probably the first time anyone's heard that line. That's probably an advantage, I guess.
Whatever he says is great.
Yeah. We have some questions from Facebook Live. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Morella asks, how do you balance seeking validation from social media as well as pressure from box office?
I think there's a pressure at the box office because it will stop being in theaters, which would, would get fewer people to go see it. And you need a movie to do well. And for a small film, you need it to do well for the first couple weekends in order for it to have a life. And I think that's important. I think you can't put all of your hopes into that, because if it doesn't happen, sometimes there's some weird cult following that happens after the fact, and that's, I think, maybe even cooler feeling, because that means that it had a stronger resonance when people look back on it. So I don't know, it's strange.
Another one from the questions. How does your acting, this is from Joshua McLaughlin, how does your acting prep differ from role to role? Do you change the way you approach it based on the role?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
at all.
Just
I know the formula. I get in there, I get out. Never look back. How do we answer that?
It ain't broke,
Did
don't
we?
fix it.
I don't know. Yeah, yeah, different.
different. Yeah.
Same.
And this question's for Matt from Travis Hardy. He says, do you have any personal experiences with social media that fueled some of the dialogue?
Other than just a consumer of it, not really. I mean, I think before we did this movie, I had 400 followers on Instagram. I don't have a big.
How many do you have now?
I think 2,000. It's
Wow.
I mean, that's a lot for me. That's.
Woo, 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 woo.
I don't know how I'm gonna handle that. But my girlfriend is on Instagram, and so and she has a lot more followers than me, and so I've seeing how she deals with it, I think informed a lot and inspired it in a lot of ways.
Yeah. In what way? Like, do you think she's terrible
Just
at
like
it?
no, just seeing how like different it is for women. I think honestly
Yeah.
on Instagram and than it is for men, and especially being, she's an actress, and so it's like having to put yourself out there. I think it was in a different way, and there's such different expectations, and like, you can't post a photo without like guys like commenting on it, being like saying gross things and stuff, which like I don't experience that as a guy in the same way. So it's just a different world, and I think that seeing that and seeing her navigate that was definitely. It definitely fed into us wanting to make this movie and write this movie and tell that story, and especially from a feminine perspective.
One of my favorite kinds of stories to find on social media is this story about how social media is bad for you. And this week there's a big one, there's a big Atlantic monthly cover story that everybody's retweeting that says your smartphones are killing you, they're destroying this generation, and it's really focused on young people. And it has stats saying rates of depression and suicide among teens are increasing faster. Like if you look at basically from 2007 to 2015, that those rates are increasing, and that those senses of loneliness that somebody like Ingrid is experiencing, or depression, might be exacerbated by social media, particularly if you're young, right? And you're looking up to, say, an actress on your favorite TV show. My 11-year-old is obsessed with Parks and Rec, and I think learned to roll her eyes because of you. Which has been a real problem, actually.
So sorry.
She's not enthusiastic about anything anymore. It's really,
But she cares deep down inside.
yeah. Deep down inside, I think it's just still some of it's there.
Yeah.
But knowing that kind of public persona is having some kind of effect, right? Like I guess in some ways it's the old role model question, right? But there's a different version of it now that I think teenagers, young kids are watching more closely and more the everyday than they used to.
I agree, and I think that that it has something to do with what Matt was talking about earlier with awareness, and I think it's like the more aware of how we feel about it and how we feel when we do it, or how we feel when we post something, or when we read someone else's, like I think there's kind of an awareness that is not that maybe in years to come we'll be more aware of how this has affected us, but right now we're like in the thick of it, so I think it's hard to tell what it's doing to us, and we're kind of like the guinea pigs or something.
Yeah.
I also have hope that like life's a pendulum and we're like going through an extreme phase of exposure, and that it might go back to like what's cool is mysterious and private. I've been saying this for years and it hasn't changed, but I'm holding out for it. Like I really would love if that were the case. I don't know if that would happen, but I think eventually we'll all understand that it's a novelty, and maybe there'll be some collective consciousness about it. But that's like my deepest hope, because I think I don't know what I would feel like if I were raised with I remember AOL chat, and that was already overwhelming for me.
Yeah. Right.
What was your away message?
I barely did it because it was overwhelming for me. What was your first screen name?
Supergirl7.
Nice. Do you want to know what mine was?
Was it Evil Hag?
No, it was Rad Beaver. And I was
Did you understand
11.
the connotation when you
No,
were writing it?
I was too young. And I was in chat rooms. At 12.
That's not.
It's not okay.
Yeah, and look how she turned out.
I thought beavers were funny.
Find her
Face
at
that they made.
evilhag.com.
Red one, even fine.
It's a better one.
Let's wrap this up. The last shot of the movie is it ambiguous or is it clear? Like, what do you want this audience who saw this movie tonight to be asking themselves as they walk home tonight? Take the subway home.
I mean, I think to your last question, I think what our intention with the ending and with the movie in general was just to have people talking about this, and in a really hopefully constructive way, because I think it is changing and it's happening so fast, and I think it's good to have a conversation about it. And I think we wanted, our intention with the ending was to present Ingrid with this choice. She has somebody in her life who cares about her for who she is and sees her who's real, and she has a bunch of people online who, are giving her this outpouring of love and affection, and I think that is sort of the message of the movie is like, what are you going to put your sort of stock into? And hopefully that's people's takeaway of it, right? Is like, do I want to be like, who do I want to be like? Do I want to be like Ingrid, or do I want to be like Dan, or what's more valuable to me? And I think those were the questions that we wanted people thinking about leaving the theater, and hopefully, on the drive or walk home would have a conversation about that.
I want to thank everyone. Also, I want to remind everyone that Lizzie's got Wind River in theaters now, which you should definitely see as well. But thank you all for coming. We're really excited to get this film series up off the ground. ScreenTimes will be a monthly series running, so look for our next announcements. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming.